Hey guys, Savar here. The LA-7 is one of the best planes at 4.7, but there's an insidious myth about its playstyle that most players believe, and it's been getting you killed ever since the beginning. Let's get started. Tell me if you've heard this one before. Russian planes are bad at high altitude, so climbing is a waste of your time. This opinion is popular enough that although plenty of people fly the LA-7, you'll usually see them stop climbing by the time they reach 12,000 feet, and if we look at the power graph of this engine, that decision would seem to be justified. Its engine power is amazing on the deck, but it drops off very hard by only 10k, its lack of supercharging transforming it from the best performer into the weakest link. Your superb climb rate is ruined, your excellent acceleration in a straight line is no longer a competitive advantage, and your top speed is no longer best in class. However, leveling off early is the worst mistake you can make. Yes, the LA-7's performance suffers at high altitudes, but that doesn't matter. You need a good position in the early game to make super aggressive moves. When it comes to clearing out furballs, this thing is one of the best at its BR. But you'll still need to remove your opponents at medium altitudes before you can go hard in the deck. Let me show you a quick example. Here, I've climbed straight in, as there's a chance the enemy will be weak at high altitude and I can go straight to attacking the furball. Unfortunately, a pair of Spitfires and an F8F show up at altitude with no convenient teammates in position to use as bait. So instead of rushing in right now to a bad situation, I'm going to turn away and make myself an inconvenient target. Moments later, the Spitfire gets bored and dives to the deck, leaving me clear to engage the F8F. I'm not worried about the other Spitfire hanging out at high altitude, because with my advantage in dive speed I can outrun him as long as I see him coming soon enough, but I have to deal with the F8F first. So when I'm flying in any plane, my goal is to put myself directly above a furball in progress, and these two guys are in the way. I want to get to the deck ASAP, and I think if I can get rid of the F8F, then the Spitfire should be too preoccupied to go after me. The F8F then turns for a head-on, and I guessed he would try to pull in at the last second from the way he deliberately avoided the head-on, but didn't fully commit to pulling away from me. I was prepared for that, and he died before he could get guns on me. Now the Spitfire is coming my way, but that's completely fine. As long as I have teammates at his altitude, I know that either he won't engage or I will have assistance in case he decides to chase me all the way down. But I do have to keep an eye on him, so I need to maintain situational awareness, and I will go after the deck and engage. Once the medium altitude targets are cleared out, then you can play the LA-7 in the super aggressive manner that you're used to seeing or possibly playing yourself. The issue is, you want to avoid being swarmed. You are perfectly capable of defending yourself against higher opponents if you see them coming and if you have enough prep time, but when you get swarmed, well, all bets are off. Now that Spitfire was the highest up, so I took care of him, and now I'm going to go after these two. I'm going a little bit fast, I don't want to compress into the dirt, so I'm going to go directly above the P-47 in, go after him, and shoot him down. Now the F8F in front of me, I can't pull in for, so I'll use what's known as a high yo-yo, which is an upwards diagonal turn to convert my forward motion into vertical motion, which prevented me from overshooting and allowed me to pull back in for the shot very shortly after. That can be risky if the enemy sees you and has the energy to pull back into your yo-yo while you're going up, but the F8F was in no position to resist, and he accepted my free ticket back to the hangar. At the start of the game, you want to hang back, climb, and build the positional advantage to avoid getting focused. Then, the moment you see an opening, you go hard. Using that strategy, I was able to get 4 kills in less than 2 minutes rather than getting jumped by a pack of Spitfires and dying instantly. The LA-7's lack of high altitude performance is no problem when the enemy doesn't know how to abuse it. If you continue climbing for even a few seconds longer than the enemy and your team, you will be in the perfect position to use B and Z tactics on the distracted, low energy targets in the furball. This is because when most War Thunder pilots fight, the engagement moves towards the ground as players panic dive or cache in altitude for a little bit of extra turn rate. With a top speed of 607 km per hour at sea level, this plane is nearly 90 km an hour faster than the Spitfire F Mark 9, and outruns many of the American birds such as the P-47s, lower tier P-51s, P-63s, and P-38s, while still easily winning the dogfight with planes like the 109G6. This potent flight performance means you can get away with having a few guys above you, because this plane is capable of defending itself against higher opponents if you can thin the enemy numbers down. The most intuitive way to fight higher enemies is by reversing them, but this is my last option since it exposes me to more risk than the next method. In this case, I'm facing a 109G14, which is a G6 in every way that counts. He has slightly more energy than me right now, and I will abuse that speed against him. At this altitude, my acceleration and turn rate are better, my pull at high speeds is better, and my roll rate is better, which means if I get to an even position, I should eventually win. The first rule of any reversal is to get speed up to make yourself a harder target. Once that's done, you make yourself slightly slower than the enemy while presenting a difficult shot. And my only hesitation here is that I'm waiting for the Zero to get far enough away, since I think that he's fake braking, and he'll come back later, which is exactly what he does, but that's not the problem in the moment. So I begin my brake turn, I go underneath him, but I'm maintaining my wings in such a position that I can suddenly turn over him and take him by surprise, which sets up the scissors. Now I'll throttle down, I use my combat and takeoff flaps to convert more speed into a temporary turn rate boost, and he'll creep up behind me, and the moment he goes out in front, There's no way he's getting away unless I make some massive mistakes. Let's watch that again, except this time against a Mustang who I will defeat with the help of another strategy. Remember, when you're defending yourself against higher aircraft, horizontal separation is your friend. You want to extend away from them and make them chase you for as long as possible before beginning the engagement, because as they dive after you, they will gain less speed than you will. They're traveling faster, and they have more drag. Drag increases exponentially as speed goes up linearly. This trick works on almost every fighter, but the LA-7 is really good at it, because shallow diving depletes the enemy's advantage, and it brings you into your best performance zone. So let's dive away for a bit, and then I'll begin my defense. My defense is the exact same, the only difference is that this time he will fall for it even harder. So he goes over, then he goes underneath me, and he's going to shoot out in front, and I will come back on top of him, disassemble his plane, turn him into a one-winged angel, and I will send him into a different game entirely. Now, jokes aside, this plane is excellent at defending itself as long as you avoid being swarmed, and this is why you should avoid leveling off too early at the start of the match. Having altitude lowers the number of people who will focus you, and puts you in a position to get above the furball for a bucket load of kills, like I've shown you in the previous clips. But Avar, you say, these are reversals against planes with worse turn rate. Against something like a Zero, things get more difficult. Sure, you can run away, but turning with them is a death sentence. In the worst case scenario, where no teammates are available, the best option is extending like you're an American plane, getting your speed up to at least 500, and pushing head-on, since Zero players often would rather dodge, giving you a free shot. If you miss, use that speed to get out of his guns, and repeat the cycle. However, if you have a teammate around, you can do this. Now, we've reversed the BF-109, and the Zero has come in with much more energy, but I'm equalizing the gap by extending away and letting my engine do the work. Again, horizontal separation is your friend as the defender. The last thing you want to do is let the enemy get directly above you, and this applies to every plane, not just the LA-7. After enough time, I have equal energy to the Zero, but I'm also outrunning my teammate, and the Zero is thinking about reclimbing to maintain his advantage, which I don't want. So I do the split S down to get my speed up, and then I'll pull back into the head-on. This looks extremely dumb, but I need to get my friendly F8F in the mix, and I have the speed to get away, just like this. Now with the F8F attacking, the Zero has to dodge, which gives me space to come around for another run the second he stops paying attention. Now I missed this pass, but I'm still going to keep turning with the Zero, and that's to put pressure on him. So, come in, shells go past him, and then I'm going to turn after him, and what this does is it forces him to turn for me and break off from the F8F. I need the F8F to stay alive, because if he dies, then I can no longer put pressure on the Zero from two directions. With him being the slower plane here, it doesn't matter how maneuverable he is. He can't get a gun solution on us long enough to actually kill us, and eventually one of us will get the shot. Go in, take his wing off, and that should be that. Now I do get the assist here, but it's no big deal. We collaborated to take down the Zero. The issue is the Spitfire LF Mark 9 4 kilometers above me, and this is a massive issue because the LF9 not only turns better, but it's also low altitude tuned, meaning my horizontal separation won't do as much to deplete his advantage. This is, to put it mildly, kind of a problem. The only thing I can do is abuse his poor roll rate to dodge a single pass, and then hope the friendly F8F can come in to distract him so we can do the same thing to him that we did to the Zero. It's going to be risky, but perhaps I can pull it off. So, after about half a minute of extending away, the Spitfire is closing into guns range. Now, I don't want him to get into guns range because if I start turning while he's too close to me, he'll stick on me like glue. I need space to get closer to the head-on. So I'm going to turn after him, try to make him do a 180. I'm going to dive under his nose. The problem is, he's going so fast that his roll rate locks up and he slams right into the ground. Lavochkin 2, Supermarine 0. I think that pretty much covers the defensive end of things, so I'll show you the trick that I promised, which is dealing with the rip speed. For example, someone in a P-51D-30 is steeply diving away from you and he's going over your red line. He's faster in the long run and you can't chase him down because he would blow your wings off, except actually you can. Instead of throttling down to stay out of the red line, raise the nose until you're bordering the red zone without having to cut the engine. Because of a trick of geometry, the P-51 now has to travel a longer distance than you do. Now you can get in range to fire a few shots even if you were slower than him the entire time, and once he starts dodging and bleeding energy with maneuvers, there's a good chance you'll be able to kill him. But that's the P-51D-30, which is an American plane known for its speed. Replace it with a slower plane like a BF-109, and there's no way they can get away from you in the long run without using their base AA. When you take a closer look, the low Russian rip speed is a fake weakness. In the vast majority of scenarios, it doesn't stop you from winning. This is because most of the planes that can dive fast enough to abuse your rip speed either have worse dogfight performance to where they can't reliably reverse you, or have worse top speed and energy retention to the point where you can pull over their defensive maneuver and then energy trap them after they're forced to make a turn. Speaking of which, let me show you how to do just that. This is right after I reversed that enemy Mustang into the Shadow Realm, and the enemy Spitfire here will see me coming. And he's deciding that he will set up for his own reversal by diving low to bait me into taking the shot and overshooting. This is a strategy that works quite often. In fact, I've seen it done before, possibly even by this player who did it to one of my colleagues. Now, I don't have to take that. The moment we merge, I begin an upward spiral energy trap rather than follow his defense, and now I can turn back after him after going up, and he's simply bled so much energy that he's not able to pull back in when he decides to pull it back in at the last second. If I turned down after him, I certainly would have overshot and died. However, the F-Mark9 is nowhere near the low altitude performance the LA-7 does, especially because it dumps speed both in dives and in turns. He had similar energy to me when he started, but he died at a lower altitude, going at least 100 kilometers per hour slower than me. And just to show you how it works, I'm going to do the exact same thing with this A7M in the background. The power of the LA-7 at low altitude is pretty great. As long as you make performance work for you rather than blindly crutch on it, you will be able to defeat the vast majority of planes at your tier, and even perform fairly well when you get up-tiered. You don't have to play passive all game, but you should maximize your advantages at the start. And once you combine that with the basics like situation awareness and intentional target priority, you have all the ingredients to get good results and one of the most consistent and fun fighters in the Russian tree. If you made it this far, drop me a comment, because I'd love to see it. I've linked my Discord in the description for those who want to join my small community, along with a playlist of more War Thunder tutorials. Have fun, subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next video.